The San Jose Sharks prepared for another rebuilding season, but they have a lot of young players who can help get that job done. JD Young of Locked On Sharks joins us to discuss that, the health of Logan Couture, and a whole lot more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And you can find us on the SXM app. Just do a search for Locked On NHL. It is great to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On San Jose Sharks, JD Young. And JD, a lot of change coming in San Jose, a lot of young players who should be contributing to this team as they continue their rebuild. Who is making the best case to make this team this year at the start of the season?
I think you have to start with William Eklund, right? The 2021 seventh round pick. Spent the majority of last year in the AHL, where he was arguably their best player while he was there. Got the 8 games in with the big team after the trade deadline, but the Sharks sent him back, trying to slide that contract for one more year. I think, Eklund this offseason, he coming off shoulder surgery, looks 100%, has no fear with that shoulder. It's always something you have to worry about, right? Is how is an athlete going to respond coming back from this, and that kind of mental. You have seen it every night. The 2 preseason games he's played so far has looked like a difference maker for the Sharks potentially. And you saw it kind of, what the big question is, when you don't have the puck or when you're not scoring, what are you doing for me? And you can see it. Eklund's been playing penalty kill minutes. He's been aggressive on the forecheck. And then last night or on Saturday night, when he every time he had a chance with the puck, went straight to the net, attacked the net. And that is the stuff that you want to see out of your young player as he continues to grow and develop. So I think Eklund is just about a lock to make the NHL roster this year, just because I know they have a lot more depth on the forward group. But this whole year is about getting Eklund ready to be an NHL player. And the best way to do that at this point is just let him play NHL games.
So where do you think he'll fit into the lineup at the start of the season?
It looks like right now he's probably going to be penciled into the third line. He's been kind of playing with Granlund, the center they acquired in the Erik Karlsson trade from the Penguins, and then Luke Kunin, who's coming back from an ACL injury. And you've seen Kunin and Eklund, especially on Saturday night's game against the Kings. Just the chemistry is a little bit off right now. Passes are just kind of a little bit out of the reach or a little behind. But I think that's something that they'll work on as they continue to play. And I think on that line, I think he'll be kind of the guy on that line. We know Granlund's passing ability, but of course his scoring isn't what you would want. And then I think Kunin can score, but he's known to take a couple penalties here and there. So I think Ekman will have a chance to shine and then continue to move up the ranks as the season goes on.
What about some other young players who have a chance to impact this team this season?
I think the big question for the Sharks is going to be what to do with Henry Thrun, the defenseman they acquired from the Ducks at the trade deadline, when he made it clear that he wasn't going to sign with the Ducks after he was finished with his Harvard career. Sharks slung the Ducks a third-round pick, signed Henry Thrun to his ELC, and now and last year he looks like an NHL player. He has all the looks of a guy who you look up and all of a sudden he's played 1,000 NHL games, because he just looks so calm and comfortable. The Sharks don't have a clear answer on who's going to run the power play, especially after Erik Karlsson has been traded. And they've been giving Thrun a lot of opportunities in the preseason to kind of maybe take that role. There is a logjam on the blue line with a bunch of different guys, but I think Henry Thrun, maybe he starts the season with the Barracuda, but I don't think he's going to be there very long, because I think he provides that two-way play that the Sharks just lack, honestly, on the blue line right now, especially after Erik Karlsson has gone. And then I think you have to shout out Shakir Mukhamadullin. Did get sent to the Barracuda today, but the big piece that they acquired in the Timo Meier trade from the New Jersey Devils has looked like a potential star for the Sharks. Big guy, 6'4", can skate. He's got to just work on that consistency part. But again, providing that two-way game that the Sharks player defense just lacks. And all he needs right now is just reps. And he's going to get big minutes in the AHL with the San Jose Barracuda. And I think as the season progresses, maybe after the holidays, close to the trade deadline, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes his NHL debut as well.
Talk to me about Logan Couture. What's the latest injury update on his situation?
So Couture came into training camp with a lower body injury that he sustained while working out this summer. He's maybe getting back on the ice here. It's still going to be a tough call if he's ready for opening night. But I think the Sharks are going to be smart with this, right? You don't want to rush Couture back, especially for what's going to be a long season and what's going to be a grind to begin the season. They have an absolute couple games at home, but they're playing like Vegas and Colorado, and then they start their annual East Coast trip to begin the season. And I think with the Sharks, you just need to play it safe. And you have Hurdle, of course, who's your 1C. You have Granlund, you have Nico Sturm, and then I think Thomas Bordeleau is kind of the other guy. If Couture is not ready, maybe Bordeleau, who's been getting a look at the second line center position in preseason, he's been okay, maybe not where you'd like him to be. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe they just slide Granlund or Sturm in there and then maybe play a guy like Ryan Carpenter at the 4C until Couture gets back from his injury. But he's supposed to be starting to skate here this week, and we'll see if he can start ramping up for the regular season.
Power play is obviously going to be different without Erik Karlsson there. What is the plan? How are they preparing to get things going this year?
That is a great question. The forwards feel really good. Like the first line, it's without Couture right now. You have Hurdle, you have Duclair, you have Hoffman, you have Barabanov. A lot of mixture between passing guys and shooting. But the power play quarterback is the big question. And we might get the chaos approach that I've been kind of hoping for of just play five forwards, right? We've seen the Panthers do it with success at times. And when you don't have a clear answer, it's not worth fitting a kind of, a round peg into a square hole. Just play the five forward. Just get your five best players on the ice. And I think at some point we're going to see that from David Quinn. But I do like the depth on the power play this year, especially compared to last year, where it felt like, if the power play 1 unit didn't do anything, the power play 2 unit was basically just the third line getting out there to kind of waving the white flag for this team. So, but I think there's going to be 2 balanced units between, and then with the inclusions of Zadina and Eklund, I think there's going to be some actual scoring on the second line. But who runs the power play? Matt Benning, maybe, or if Henry Thrun. Those would be my 2 guesses. Or we just get the chaos approach of 5 forwards, and that would be the most fun, I think.
Well, it wouldn't be dull, that's for sure. High risk, high reward, as they say.
Please just give me something to be entertained by. It's gonna be a long season.
I mean, this is obviously a team rebuilding, but where do you think they are in this rebuilding plan right now?
They're still very much in that roster churning phase, right? You saw this weekend they claimed Ty Emerson from the New York Rangers, and I think you're going to see a lot of that from the Sharks this year, trying to just grab guys, see if they fit with what you're trying to do, or if they can be a potential piece, and then kind of go from there. And I wouldn't go out and buy a Sharks jersey right now, because there's not too many guys who you can be like, okay, I could see this guy being on the team in 2 or 3 years. But they're kind of in that roster churning, trying to see if they can find some gems. This worked for them a couple of years ago when they traded for Alexander Barabanov from the Leafs, and now Barabanov is kind of set to probably have a monster season and ask for a big contract at some point this year. But I think that's just kind of where they're at right now. And Mike Grier has been very adamant about not rushing the prospects, right? Making sure when they're ready to jump in the NHL, they're NHL ready and kind of ready to stick there. So I kind of expect to see a lot more of that, having these veterans kind of holding the fort down until your young guys are ready to take those jobs from them, and not just giving jobs. I think under Doug Wilson, Eklund would have probably played a majority of the last season. But you see with Mike Grier, where just being a little bit more patient, his term is to over-ripen these prospects and make sure that they're absolutely ready to take these NHL jobs. So that's kind of where we're at. Still very, very early in the rebuild phase for the Sharks.
All right, JD, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Of course, you can find the podcast wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can subscribe on YouTube as well, or do both. Both is best. And you can find me on Twitter or X or whatever they call it nowadays at My Fry Hole. Also on Threads at My Fry Hole. And you can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Threads, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks.
All right, JD, thanks so much for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by a product I literally use every day, AG1 by Athletic Greens. Maybe you're like me, you want to be healthy and eat well, but it's always easier said than done. That's no longer the case with AG1. With one delicious scoop of AG1 in a glass of water each day, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all of these things. And if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1. You can get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Just go to drinkag1.com/NHL network. That's drinkag1.com/NHL network. Check it out.